Nation. Episode of EvoAZ is what we love to call it. And it is counselor doing today?
Hi, how's it going?
Pretty well. How are you doing?
Good. It's Friday.
Yay, Friday. Awesome. Well, as usual, guys, we are going to hop right into a hot topic. And this post came out oftentimes on this show. We'll either choose a topic to chat about that maybe Dyanna has been working with a lot with her clients, or that we've seen a lot posted, talked about, within the Mom Nation group or out there in social media land. And today we have an anonymous post that came out just a couple days ago in the Mom Nation group, and it spoke to me personally, and I'll share why. But let me first share that post, and I'll read it to those that are listening on the podcast version because you don't have the video. So here's what this anonymous member posted a couple of days ago. My fiance spends at least 2 nights a week at his family's house. They live only 10 minutes away, and it's starting to bug me. I have kids and we recently got engaged. So in my mind, we should be working on building our future together as a family. But at this point, I'm starting right now to feel that he's half in and half out, not fully committed to building our life together and all that. His family is super close and he's a mama's boy, which I have no problem with, especially because I don't have a close family and I absolutely love his family. Ding, ding, ding. That's a big one right there, isn't it, Dyanna? I see her shaking her head. Yes. But to me, it's a bit excessive, and I would understand more if it was maybe once every other week or once in a while. But spending the day there a few times a week or something, I've tried period. Forgot the punctuation. I've tried talking to him about how I feel and what I'm wanting in the future with us, and he agreed to it. It's weird where I'm coming from, yet nothing is changing, and this is always on a whim. So it's like I can't even plan anything. I'm at a loss now, and I'm starting to feel like nothing will change or no compromise will be made, if that makes sense. Am I wrong for feeling the way I do and wanting what I want? Do I just not understand enough and need to accept this more just because it's not how I grew up? Oh boy, there's a lot in there.
There is a lot in there.
That's some heavy stuff.
Yeah, I can tell she's frustrated. Like she has a certain expectation that isn't getting met. And, what do we know about missed expectations, right? Like both people lose, the person that has the expectation and the person that's not meeting it. You know what I mean? And so I kind of have to wonder if, there have been some expectations that have been verbalized, you know what I mean? And not just like vague or broad ones like, I don't want you going to your parents' house 3 times a week, or I don't want you to be doing this or whatever. But like, what are the boundaries and expectations here? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I think one of the things that jumped out to me immediately was that like my family's not close when she said that. Right. And so her perspective and her worldview of how families should operate and what the expectations are going to be very different than his, for example. And in some ways, the closeness of his family can feel potentially very triggering for her. Because
it's threatening, right?
Definitely. And threatening, but also like triggering if she doesn't have that experience. You know what I mean? And that's a reminder that like, I don't have that. Like I didn't grow up with that. That wasn't the expectation growing up, those sorts of things. And we don't know the dynamics there as to why her family's not close. But that could certainly be loaded with some other, trauma related, events and things. But it sounds to me that maybe he doesn't think that there's anything wrong with what he's doing because like, it's his family and that's just maybe always how he has operated. But clearly she's feeling some sort of way about it. And I'd like to think that if they came together and not necessarily compromise, like she said in the post, but like, have some expectations and renegotiate what they are from there. You know what I mean? When you compromise, compromise is valuable because it means that basically both people lost a little bit, right? And that's how you know you struck a good compromise. Both people feel like they lost a little bit. But expectations and boundaries are different than compromising, right? Because those are your hard like lines on things, and expectations can be negotiated certainly. But if there's a boundary, that has to be set, and a boundary isn't an ultimatum. It isn't you do this or something bad's going to happen, the relationship's going to end or something like that. The expectations have to come alongside the boundary so we understand why they exist and why they're there, and try to figure out how everyone can get their needs met through them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love what you said way back during the expectation part of things. And I'm wondering if maybe this mom, she has kids. Mm-hmm. So perhaps she was in a committed relationship that was long-term, or a marriage even, or something like that. But I don't know, there's no information about this person, the fiance, if that in fact was his experience too. So could this be his first big relationship, big long-term committed relationship? And like you mentioned, maybe, all through college, whatever, and I don't know how old this person is, but maybe that's just been the normal routine for him. Yeah. And a big relationship like this hasn't come yet to sort of change those winds, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I also have to wonder what sort of cultural implications are present too, because, the idea of family is different across cultures. And if they are coming from two different cultures, that might be part of where the pain point is coming from, because it's maybe something that she didn't know, or maybe that he didn't know about her going into it, that like, this is the role that family has in my life. You know what I mean? And begs the question of what is to happen in the future. Like when parents get elderly, like, is that also my responsibility to take care of them? Not only is it to spend, time with them throughout the week, but is it to take care of them if something happens to them? Like, do I owe them anything like financially from an expectation perspective? You know what I mean? And so I sort of wonder if there's a cultural difference there that maybe hasn't been acknowledged yet,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sounds like some deep conversations, obviously, need to happen. And, back to the trigger point, I can relate, Dyanna. I can relate so much because, as we all know, especially if you've been following us for a while, Matt, my husband, my current husband, my son's dad, is my second marriage, right? And so I was married before. I got married really, really young. It just was the thing to do in my small town. It's like what you looked forward to, And so that's what I did. And I was way too young, way too inexperienced. Anyway, that's a whole other show. But the wonderful man, I have nothing at all bad to say about him. He's a great guy. We just didn't end up working out. But the wonderful man that I was married to had a very close relationship with his parents. His parents were not divorced. Mine had been divorced since I was 2 years old. I didn't remember my parents together. We didn't have that. Right. And in fact, my parents didn't get along. So there was absolutely no holidays, get-togethers, gatherings, anything like that. It was very split. And for a while it was there was a lot of anxiety for me as a child with that. Right. And so I built that callus. And once I started dating him and started experience, his family was great. I started experience their closeness. I was really threatened by that, Dyanna. My position was threatened. And I didn't realize that I was 19. I didn't realize that was what was going on. So it came out in anger. It came out in, negative response to those situations. And the poor guy, I probably pulled him away from his family. I got to imagine that I did, because of how I was behaving, and he wanted to make me happy. And so I'm not really proud of that, I have to tell you. That took some healing to figure out and to get over and get around, but I can relate to that feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I appreciate, that experience. And it's something that you didn't know at the time. Like you're a human, you know what I mean? And when you know better, you do better, so it's a life experience, you know what I mean? So I hope that you're proud of what you learn about it, you know what I mean? And learn about yourself and the why, you know what I mean? It wasn't for nothing, you know what I mean? Nothing should be for nothing. It should be for whatever we want to get out of it, whether it's a lesson or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, she could certainly very well feel threatened about her position in the family and not feeling like she like holds as much weight within the family. But I think if she can get herself to a place where she's not feeling, hopeless or angry or frustrated and becomes more curious, I think that she's likely to get the outcome of that conversation that she wants, right? And the behavior change that she wants. Like, tell me what your expectations are for spending time with family. Like, I don't understand. Like, what do you want, like, the grandparent experience to look like? Like, what are your expectations for when your parents get older and they can't take care of themselves? Like, tell me why this is important to you. Tell me about your values within your family. Tell me how you grew up and what that looked like with your grandparents and your parents. You know what I mean? So I have an understanding of like how you arrived at that. That makes so much more sense because as humans, like we want to reason for things, right? So we have science, like we want to reason for things. And now that you have the reason after that conversation, like, okay, well, let me tell you like what my experiences were and what my perspective is. And how I grew up and all of that. And like, clearly like our experiences were very different. So there's nothing wrong with your experience. There's nothing wrong with my experience. They're just very different. So like, let's just recalibrate them, you know what I mean? And make it work for us. And again, a compromise is both people have to give a little something up. But if the expectation is that, I expect that, we go to your parents' house for dinner once a week. You know what I mean? Like, is that something that like you can work with or not? You know what I mean? If the boundary is like, your mom just can't like walk into the house if the door is unlocked, right? Like, that's a boundary that's reasonable. And, he doesn't have to love, but agree to, you know what I mean? But the point being, if we can remove the blame and the personalization of him spending time with his family and that he's got 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and he's not as invested in his family, that might not be accurate. That might be her perception, which is certainly her reality, right? It's her truth, but that might not be where he's at or 100% accurate objectively to the situation, right? And so if we can put that emotion aside and just get really curious about the why, it removes the blame from it and makes it more of like an issue that like we can solve together. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love that because my question was going to be approach. So thank you for answering my question without me even asking it. But, something so there were a few comments on this post. I don't know if you were able to catch those. And one of the comments stuck out to me, and I found myself asking myself, like, yeah, why didn't she do that, or why doesn't she do that? And I don't know if she does or doesn't. She doesn't mention it in the post, but perhaps in seeing if she can attend as well.
Yeah,
maybe it's something that she can become a part of too. Yeah, and then it's not so much us and them; it's all of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's assuming she wants to, right? She may not want to be as involved as he is with his family. But if this is an issue that's been around for a long time, there might be on her end, at least, maybe some perceived awkwardness that she's like trying to pull him away, like from his family. You know what I mean? And so, like, that part has to be a united front, right? Like, if we are only coming over once a week for dinner, like, this is what we decided works for us. You know what I mean? Like, the teamwork has to be there. And if she doesn't want to be involved, then that's fine. Like, you go to your parents' house on Wednesdays and then we'll go over there for dinner together on Sundays or whatever. You know what I mean? But she can be involved if she wants to be.
Right. I agree. And again, we don't know all the details, but knowing what I know now, having been through what I went through previously, what I, just explained to you earlier, I would likely have that conversation and say, hey, can I come? can I be involved? Because it's a trigger for me to not be. I feel, isolated. I feel like I'm not a part of things. I feel like something's happening, without me. And do you really want me to be there or don't you? And, I'm questioning that. Like there would be all these questions that would be
Sure.
bubbling up for me for sure.
Or maybe she wouldn't even care about him going over there if she felt like her needs were being met in other areas. Right?
Yeah.
Like if they were spending intentional time together, like date nights or whatever, or she was getting her cup filled through her own self-care and interests and hobbies and things like that, she might not even care as much. You know what I mean? Like I'm hard pressed to believe that like this is the only thing, you know what I mean? It just seems like this is probably a big symptom, but there are likely other areas maybe that like her needs aren't being met in the relationship. And this is just like a really easy thing to attack, you know what I mean? But it's very likely that if she had her needs met in other areas of the relationship, like she might not even care. You know what I mean? She might not even care that he's going over there, twice a week to see his parents, or, maybe once a week sounds better or whatever. But I don't think she would feel however way she feels right now. I don't feel like it would be quite as spicy if she felt like her needs were getting met in other places.
I agree. There's another piece that stuck out to me, and she mentions that this is just random, so she can't even plan anything. And I'm a planner, so like that would drive me absolutely nuts. And I can understand if she's anything like that, a planner whatsoever, then I can see how that's kind of a little frustrating. So part of that conversation, maybe suggesting some sort of schedule, like you had just said, maybe Wednesday night is the night that he goes over and spends the night with his family, and then we come over as a family on Sunday or something like that. But I think a schedule would be helpful to this mom.
Absolutely. Because if she feels like it's random, like what does random mean? Does that mean like, oh, he was supposed to be home at 3 and now he's stopping at his parents and now he's not coming home till 5? Or does that mean like, oh, I was hoping that we were going to spend family time on Saturday, but you're going to your parents' house on Saturday? Like, what does random mean? You know what I mean? Like, I know what the word means exactly, but what does that mean to her in terms of like random? Are they just like spontaneous, unplanned, or just like, hey, I'm going to my parents' house on my way home, like sort of thing? You know what I mean? So having some sort of routine or structure doesn't necessarily take control from him, because we don't want anyone to feel controlled, right? Like we don't want anyone to feel like controlled in their relationship, but I think reasonable expectations are fair. You know what I mean? That I expect, going back to the expectations, like I expect that like, at least one weekend day every week is like our family time, and that we're going to spend time with the kids or whatever. Or I expect that, during the week you're home after work because I'm making dinner and I already have that planned, whatever, you know what I mean? And see what his expectations are too, so they can align on that a little bit better. But I'm curious about like, what does random mean exactly?
I think that's a great point. And we don't have that information obviously in the post, but I'm also wondering, when the going gets tough, maybe there's a little friction at home, maybe something happened. Is that a trigger for him to be like, peace, going to my parents? You know what I mean? Because if that's the case, and again, I'm just speculating here, I don't know if it is, but if that's the case, I can see why that's a bit frustrating too, and how that is perceived as not working on the relationship.
Yeah, avoidance.
Yeah, right. we did a show on that, attachment styles.
We did. We sure did.
Yeah, I post that one a lot. The attachment style, I actually should put that here in the show notes. I will, because the attachment style video that we did, or podcast episode that we did, it's got so much value in it, and it makes so much sense as, and not even with partnerships. It just makes so much sense with relationships with everybody, with friendships, with, your kids, like everyone. Just makes a lot of sense to me. So I will, I'll link that here for you guys, because I think it'll be really helpful as it somewhat pertains to this. I mean, I think it somewhat pertains to everything.
It really does. It does. It makes things make a lot of sense that didn't make sense before. Attachment style is really cool. But yeah, it certainly could be a way for him to avoid, which then goes back to my previous point of like, does she feel like her needs are getting met in the relationship? You know what I mean? Is it that he's going to his parents a lot, or is it that, when I bring something up that feels potentially negative, like he shuts down or he leaves or whatever, you know what I mean? Because that's a different issue entirely. You know what I mean? So what other areas are there that she's not having her expectations or her needs met? And is the family thing correlated in the way that she thinks it is or not, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Anything else that you'd like to add to this one? This was packed with stuff. So thank you for everything that you already have given us. But is there anything else that sticks out that we didn't go over?
Yeah, I would say like for this mom that's clearly feeling some sort of way about it, without attaching an emotion to it for her, she's clearly feeling some sort of way. And I would encourage her to, once she feels regulated, like not angry or anxious or frustrated or whatever, like once she's feeling calm and regulated, like use a soft startup approach, right? Like, hey, something like I want to talk to you about, like I'm feeling some sort of way about this. And like, I don't want to have a conflict about your family. Like your family is really important to you. And like, I value that, but like, I feel like there's some mixed expectations here. And this is just a recipe for resentment down the road. And I don't want that. So like, let's figure this out where both of our needs are getting met. I'm not coming for you. I'm just trying to figure out like a happy medium for both of us, or we're both getting our needs met. You know what I mean? Like a soft startup approach, and then going into like the curiosity piece. You know what I mean? Like, why do you think that we have so much conflict over this? Or, I want to tell you how I'm feeling about it. Like, how are you feeling about it? You know what I mean? And just getting really curious and staying calm. If at some point during that conversation, you start to feel dysregulated, just take a pause. You know what I mean? Like I can already start to tell like I'm getting heated. So I'm going to go walk the dog and come back and we'll finish this conversation or something, and give some sort of commitment to return to it until you can get through it. Don't feel the need to push through it when you're dysregulated, because it's probably not going to have the intended outcome as you want.
I totally agree. Walking away has so much value when you need
Absolutely.
to walk away.
As long as you have that commitment to return, you deserve to have the space to regulate yourself.
I agree. I use it when needed. And it's been amazing. So great advice as always, Dyanna. Awesome. Well, mama out there, anonymous mom, I hope that this has been helpful to you. I hope that it's been helpful to all of you mamas that might be dealing with this situation. Again, we love to pull from anonymous posts in the group. So please continue to put your postings up. I know that I see Dyanna all week long. She's on there and she's giving away amazing advice. So she's in there, guys. She's watching. And thank you so much for that, Dyanna. I know you do it out of the kindness of your heart. So thank you. I know our mamas really appreciate it.
I'm here for it.
Thank you. Awesome, guys. Well, if you want to check out any more of Dyanna, especially that attachment style video, I'm putting that in the show notes, so it'll be there momentarily. If you're watching the live right now, just give me a second to do it. Otherwise, if you're catching the replay, it will be there. We have a ton of other videos over on our YouTube channel. It is at Mom Nation USA. Scroll down just a little bit. You will see the OLS, Our Love Story playlist, Q&A with a couples counselor. And that is all of the videos, guys, all of them. If you prefer the podcast style, maybe you run a lot, hike a lot, bike a lot, you get that body moving, right? Then you can hop on over to your favorite podcast platform and do a quick search for Mom Nation Talk Radio. And there you will connect with all of our episodes. Thank you again so much.
Thank you for having me.